Welcome to Jane's Place, where dreams learn to fly. Season 2, the Strength Series. If you are new to Jane's Place, welcome. If you joined me last season, thank you for continuing the journey with me. For those of you watching this podcast, you see a picture of me from the summer of 1995. I was just promoted to division president at Frito-Lay, the highest ranking woman at Frito, and the first woman in a president role. At 36, I was at the top of my game, and it's pretty evident from the look on my face, the glass of champagne, and the cigar that I thought I was somebody important. And maybe I was. But within 6 months, there would be a reorganization at Frito, and my position would go away. I would move into a role that was clearly a demotion, and within 2 years, I would leave the company. From hero to zero. From my vantage point today, the story of why I got demoted is not very insightful. What is insightful is that I did not have the tools to deal with this failure. I didn't realize that it was just one of many bumps in the road that I would have in both my professional and personal life in the years that have followed. I didn't realize that this was just part of my journey where failure and success are two sides of the same coin. I didn't realize that I would be a better leader and stronger person on the other side of this. Honestly, it hurt like hell and shook my confidence. So in season 2, I talk about passion again, and I ask most of my guests about resiliency and how they manage during tough times. Because it is not if we will have failure, it is just when. And when the win comes, and it will, do we have the tools to learn and grow from it? Thanks for joining me for the Strength Series. And spoiler alert, 30 years later, failure still sucks. In today's episode, I chat with a new friend, John Weiss, CEO and founder of Human Design, a breakthrough brand and communication agency. I was so excited to chat with John about his passions and resiliency, my key themes in season 2, that we ended up talking for an extensive amount of time. In fact, we had enough material for 3 podcasts. I could only whittle it down to 50 minutes because I just didn't want to leave anything out. You will miss him talking about his 2 passions of his family and elevating the human experience. But I promise these 2 themes are weaved throughout our discussion, which ranges from the velocity and speed of AI to trying to be comfortable in the ordinary of our lives. Plus lots of great quotes from John and a few aha moments from me. I know you will love this episode. To learn more about John and his favorite comfort food, please visit janeplace.com. So John, as you were talking, I was wondering about the role of vulnerability for you as a leader. Like, how does that, how does that come into play? I mean, tell me a little bit about your style and how you kind of show up, because vulnerability to me is always, it's kind of it's tricky in the sense that you want to connect with people, and it does kind of tie to empathy in a lot of ways. But on the other hand, as the leaders, we're like the ones that are supposed to have the answers and be the strong ones and all that. So how does that play out for you?
It's been a hard thing to learn over a long period of time. There's, as we both know, there's verbal and nonverbal communication, and so much of communication is nonverbal. And I think vulnerability, typically when people talk about it, they talk about it in the words that you use. How do you be very transparent? How do you be and most of the things they're talking about are verbal. How do you show up in a vulnerable verbal state? How do you also, in my mind, show up in a vulnerable nonverbal state? Showing at times, if you want to be empathetic, there might be a time where you drop your shoulders a little bit. You open up your stance. You change your nonverbal communication to someone, and you let them know what I'm about to say might not be fully transparent. It might not be really vulnerable, but the way in which I'm saying it can be vulnerable. I can change my entire state and presence and say something with a different cadence to let someone know my level of sincerity or my level of fear or my level. There's so many different things that you could do nonverbal.
Right.
And that's something that I've focused on more, because when I was younger, I viewed vulnerability as just verbal, and I'd almost word vomit. I'd almost talk too much, be too transparent. Mm-hmm. And I would share all of my thought process of how I went from point A to point C. And that was being vulnerable, was walking you through how I got from this state to this state. And I'm going to bring you along with me, and you're going to be on this journey. And I'm going to share all the decision points I had. And at this point I struggled and I wrestled with this, and then I learned this thing. And what I've learned over time is a lot of people, one, they don't have the patience for that level of story. Two, as much as people say they want transparency, sometimes they either don't, or they don't realize they can't handle it.
Yes.
They need the blinders on. They don't need this much perspective, because in their mind, they're like, I want to know how everything works. Okay, great. You tell them how everything works, and now they're overwhelmed. And it's just like, as a parent, I have to share things with my kids that are age appropriate, because at this age, their mind not be able to grok all these other points. And if I share everything, it's just going to overwhelm them.
Right.
So there's just that concept of age appropriate. With adults and vulnerability, it's almost like vulnerable appropriate. They're also vulnerable. If you share too much, they're not going to know how to handle it. So I've had to learn, how do you be vulnerable in the words you say, but also the presence that you carry. So, and then knowing when not to be totally vulnerable. If the business isn't going super well, or we're struggling, you still have to kind of put on that facade where you come in and you have a smile and you're like, we got this.
Right.
Everything's going to be great.
Right.
So I think for me, it's the verbal, nonverbal piece was a big learning thing.
I love that. I have never really thought about the nonverbal part of vulnerability, really. Because I do think a lot about it, being transparent, and a lot of those things you talked about. I think that's super insightful, and it really leads me into thinking about something that I just feel is so critical right now, which is human interaction.
Yes. Yeah.
Like that, in this day of so much that is on our phones, our computers, AI, everything around us that feels so big and overwhelming, this idea of nonverbal vulnerability can really only come by spending time with people. Because I just don't think you can get it on Zoom or Teams or something. Like, you have to be sitting here, like, just next to each other. So I love that, which actually leads into talking about your second passion, about the human experience.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about your company, how you got it started, what you're trying to do in this, making an impact, because I think these things are they're so interwoven about how we show up as leaders, how we interact with others, the impact that we're trying to make. Yeah. And again, in this thing that I'm obsessed with is people being with people.
Yeah. Well, the people being with people, super important. And when you talk about being vulnerable, one last point on that, the easiest way to be vulnerable, and I think a lot of people know this, is to admit that you don't know the answer. And a lot of people will equate that to vulnerability. If someone asks you something, maybe you're vulnerable, you say, you know what, I don't know that. Let me go find that out.
Right.
Let me process that. And a state of vulnerability is letting people know I don't have all the answers all the time. With AI, it's done the opposite. It's created an expectation that we have the answers at our fingertips, on the ready, right now, all the time. And we have all this information.
Right.
The worry with AI is it creates this sense of expediency and speed, which is unrealistic. So, I have a problem. I need the answer right now. And as human beings, I think virtually it would be very easy to give into that. I'm not sitting across from someone. They ask me a question. I need to answer them right now. I need to look it up, get them the answer. What's nice about human interaction is it creates a forced space where it creates forced vulnerability. If you ask me something and I don't know the answer, I either need to be vulnerable and show you that I need to grab my phone and look it up.
Right.
Or I need to be vulnerable and say, I don't have the answer.
Right.
And it creates this forced social agreement where I can be vulnerable and calm and say, I don't know. Let me think about that for a second. And then it creates responsibility for you to be understanding and okay with that.
Right.
And that's what's so important about this human connection. And when I founded Human in 2013, so my wife and I were up in Portland, Oregon. We had just, we have, like I mentioned, 4 kids. So we had just moved to Boulder in 2013 from Portland. I grew up in Colorado, and I was doing a stint at Crispin Porter Wiegeski, which is a large ad agency. And it was great. But at that point, I was 13 years into my career. And right before Crispin, I'd done an in-house stint at WebMD Health Services.
Right.
So it wasn't WebMD.com where it's like, oh, sorry, Jane, you stubbed your toe, you have cancer. It was the platform for employers and employees.
Oh, okay. Oh.
So we were the white labeled platform for any wellness platform for Disney, Dell, Honda, Tyco, anybody with 10,000 or more employees. They'd usually use our platform to help their employees live healthier.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So like at Dell was using our platform. So we did about 150 million a year in revenue, and I led the redesign of the product. And I was there for about 2.5 years. And that's the only in-house design job I've ever done. That got me really interested in behavioral psychology, intrinsic motivators, extrinsic motivators, people not self-activating. How do we as human beings work together? I started consuming a lot of content like the book Nudge or Atomic Habits around what motivates people. And that was coming off of me early in my career learning about usability and user experience. So I always had this human thread throughout all of it. You know, how are things usable? What's user experience? Oh, healthcare. How do you motivate people to live healthier? So when I worked at Crispin, I had this inkling that I finally had the itch to really try to build things that move the human experience forward versus selling products for other people.
Right.
So when I founded Human, it was based on that premise. We've planted a big flag that our mission was to move the human race. And by planting that flag, we started to get clients coming to us. Like we did a project with the United Nations around the Sustainable Development Goals. We did a lot of work with Vulcan Productions, Paul Allen's old company, around environmental causes. So Racing Extinction, Louis Ahoy's film, Ivory Game, Leonardo DiCaprio. And we started to try to tell stories of other people that were having impact on humanity. And that's just kind of stayed the course. We still do projects that pay the bills, but it is really important that we have a set of skills as storytellers that can hit someone's emotional resonance and move them.
Right.
So if we're going to do that, it would be great to do that around something that actually makes their life better in some form or fashion.
Right.
More convenient, more healthy, saves them time, saves them money, makes them feel better. So that's sort of our premise. So anything that we do for any brand, we try to find that human element. It's just super important.
Wow. And, you know, we were talking earlier about sometimes the time that it takes to establish relationships and follow up and all that. When you're doing this work on creating a human element, how do you find the right clients that understand this just doesn't happen overnight? Like, because that to me seems like that would be, I'm just thinking about my own business or Rudy's, where I feel like as you're talking about that, what we do okay is we do a product connection because there's a health benefit, but we don't have the heart connection. And how hard, I mean, to me, that's the breakthrough, right? Like if you could go beyond like, hey, you're just buying this loaf of bread or this widget or whatever it is, to having this connection. I mean, so how do you identify like-minded, clients?
Yeah. Well, you said something really key. It is, how do you touch someone's heart? 95% of decisions are based on emotion. They're rationalized later by logic. So there's a really good book called Thinking Fast and Slow. And they talk about level 1 thinking, level 2 thinking, and how as human beings, we make those decisions through emotion. So like I'll tell a lot of clients, we're not thinking beings, we're feeling beings who happen to think.
Right.
So how do you as a brand touch my heart as an emotional creature?
Right.
and not in a manipulative way, but just in a way where there's something that Jane cares about. There's something that our brand cares about. Those are values. How do we pair up our values in a way where it's an honest conversation? And then if we create something that you want, value, or feel, then you'll probably choose us.
Right.
If you don't, that's okay too.
Right.
But if you do, you're choosing us based on an emotional connection, not on features or benefits, like health benefits. So you asked, how do we do that? It's getting way harder to find the clients that want to do that because the perception of speed.
Yes.
So everybody wants velocity and precision. So that was our wedge play early on, was even though we had that human connection, we landed Nike and Twitter and Google and those sort of clients because our wedge play was, we can do that at speed, velocity, and precision.
Right.
And it worked because that was pre-AI. And now with AI, velocity is not the differentiator. Everything's moving fast. So we're now trying to pick the clients that are okay with that human connection, taking just a little bit longer, but more importantly, that you're buying the humans to human. You're literally buying the people that are doing the work.
Right.
And our ability to deploy judgment and reason. And the clients that we're looking for are the ones that still believe in that still believe in that as a differentiator. That the people within our walls, that we're going to be the guardians of relevance, we're going to be the protectors of meaning, we're going to understand your brand, and we're most importantly going to know what to say no to. Right. That we will have the ability to deploy judgment and say, it's not about creating more, it's about deciding what do we say no to and creating less, so that the things that are left have 10 times more potency.
Right.
So now, I don't know if this is going to work or not because we're in early stages, but to me, it kind of course I want it to work, but it matters less to me if it works or not. It matters if we actually try to deploy it. And that is us changing our messaging and saying, you're not going to choose human based on speed or precision. You're going to choose us based on our judgment. You're going to choose us based on our ability to identify the things that should remain. And then how do you tell that story? Now we'll do that as fast as we can. And we will use AI around certain operational things. A little bit of research, a little bit of meeting notes, going through large amounts of data, but we're not going to use AI to try and find the edges. Because the edges is where all the great creative work happens.
Right.
And AI, by its very nature, commoditizes everything. It homogenizes everything. It grabs every piece of information and it goes to the middle. And I used to always say, and I still say, it's the middle is where everything goes to die. Wow. So if AI aggregates everything and then averages it out and gives Jane an answer, what AI will not do, at least now, and I hope it will never do this, it won't be able to be unreasonable. It's going to work within the confines that it's been taught and what it knows and within its own set of reasoning and logic. And the great thing about human beings is we know how to be unreasonable. So we know how to look at all the, obvious things. And we say that as humans, well, that's the obvious answer, or that's derivative, or that's low-hanging fruit. We have phrases that we use as human beings that denote, oh, we're not pushing hard enough. We're not getting to the good stuff. We're just scratching the surface. So we use phrases like that. Oh, that's low-hanging fruit, or that's obvious, or that's derivative. And that's us telling each other what I always tell our design team. They hear me say this all the time. I think we can beat that.
Right.
AI at some point's going to grab the average and say, hey, Jane, this is your answer. I think this is great. And unless you know how to prompt it and how to push it, it's not going to push in and be unreasonable.
Right.
It's just not. So what does that leave you with? It leaves you with literally the human element. Jane or John knowing how to push and prompt and dig. So for us, finding clients that believe in that, the human element, us, is a difference maker. Being okay with being a little bit more patient. And more important than any of that, finding clients that truly believe that if you give the right time and space to the idea and you give it oxygen and you give it the human element, you're going to come up with something that's unreasonable and at the edges that AI or technology would not come up with. So that when you do at Rudy's or any company, when you do sit in a room with people and you say, we have a new product, how do we compete? How do we, and you go through all the marketing exercises that we've all done. And then you're looking for the differentiator, right? Because different is better than better. People don't buy better, they buy different. Right. So if you tell me you're better than something, I'm like, I don't know. And you have to compete against what I already know. You have to convince me that you're better. But if you come in and you say, we're different. Right. Okay, well, great. Tell me how you're different. And that differentiator should be on purpose. It should be that unexpected. It should be that human element. And that just takes a little bit of time. So we have a whole model of human I won't go into, but candidly, it'll be really interesting, Jane, if you were to call me up 12 months from now, because, and we will be talking 12 months from now, but if you called me up 12 months from now, it would be very interesting to see where humans at.
Right.
Because we're placing a bet on this. And I'm hoping, well, hope's not strategy. I believe it's the right bet. But you also might call me up in 12 months and I may say we're out of business because businesses just wanted speed. They wanted AI. We didn't go fast enough. But for right now, it's playing out well. It's working.
Wow, there are so many things I want to talk about here. This is so amazing because it was so interesting. I want to talk about the AI thing first. And then I want to talk about the pivot that your business is making and being resilient. But this is so fascinating to me about what you said about AI being in the middle.
Yeah.
Like that, it's so interesting because I've like everybody that I in contact with, especially I would say this next generation of leaders, are really worried about AI because it's going to take their jobs, especially entry-level jobs, et cetera. And I had never thought about this culmination of information that gets you to sort of this bland inner spot, as opposed to this idea of pushing the edges of unreasonableness. That's so brilliant. Yeah. It just that idea of how do we in this world of this middle, how do we flex our muscles to be pushing the edges? I think, John, that's like, it's such a huge insight to be able to think about how we master it as opposed to having it master us.
That's right. 100%. Well, and when you were talking about empathy earlier, if you wanted your best friend that was always sympathetic, that's AI. AI is always going to come along and placate. And there's jokes about it now in commercials. That's a great idea, Jane. Let's talk about that.
Right.
And there's now conversation about like AI is way too generous, way too kind, because it's trying to be empathetic, it's trying to be your friend, it's trying to give you this middle ground answer. What humans need in those moments of empathy, they need this blend of, yes, come alongside me, but sometimes if I'm talking to the right person and I know Jane can get me out of this funk or whatever I'm in as a business leader, as a person, ultimately, what am I asking of this relationship? I believe what I'm asking is I need leadership. I need you to lead me to an answer in this moment in time. So if I share something with the desire for you to be empathetic, but I'm hoping, or I know that somewhere you have an answer that I don't have, what I need at that point is, and what I want is leadership.
Right.
I want to follow someone who's leading at least for that moment. I don't believe AI, and ideally it will never be in this position, will be in a position of leadership. I hope humans don't go to AI with the desire that I want that to lead me. I'm looking for leadership. No, it's aggregating and amalgamating answers and giving you what it thinks you want to hear.
Right.
And then it gives you some ideas. But it's not truly leading, and it's not being unreasonable, being like, hold on, what if we look at it from a completely different perspective?
Right.
So, because again, AI very rarely prompts you. It's not a two-way conversation. I mean, that's why we have terms like prompt engineering and prompting, and one way. I'm going to prompt, I'm going to prompt, I'm going to prompt. Me as a human, I'm going to prompt the AI, and it's going to give me enough information. Does the AI ever prompt me to think different? Does it ever prompt me to ask questions that I've not even thought to ask myself?
Right.
Does it ever say like, given, as human beings, we can say that. We can say, given my experience, here's a question that I don't think you're asking, or I don't think you're thinking of asking. But have you ever thought about asking this question?
Right.
And it's that idea of, what is the question that we're not even asking right now?
Right.
And then when you're talking to AI, who is the one asking the questions? The human. So at some point you hit your capacity at the level of question sets that you can ask. And then at that point, you're like, I don't know what else to ask. Well, that's a shame, because now the responses are limited to whatever you feel you can ask.
Right.
There's no organic sense to it. And I think with brands and businesses, that's a big piece of it, is that a big risk for brands is that unless you have a really good leader within the walls of the brand that has confidence and judgment and taste and discernment to take things and say, yes, no, it's like Miles Davis said, jazz is more about the notes that you don't play than the notes that you play. So the risk with brands is that the more you integrate AI, the more you're going to get good responses back. And it is that idea that good is not good enough. And unless you have someone internally that has the taste, that can look at 10 good ideas and say, we're not going to move with any of them, or we're going to say no to these 9 and press in on this one, the risk is that AI gives you good enough stuff that it allows our human nature of laziness and being placated to kick in. Oh, I like that answer that Claude gave me. That feels pretty good.
Right.
Ship it. Like, I like those words it wrote. I like that graphic it created. Ship it. But unless someone really has the patience and the courage to like press in on it and be like, I think we can beat that. I think there's something better. The risk is the machine feeds itself. Good enough, ship it. Next task, good enough. And what we think is creating more efficiency is actually creating more work. Because now we're like, I can take on more tasks. Give me that thing. I'll have it write it. And then pretty soon, instead of me focusing on 3 things this week that I'm pressing in on, I'm shipping those 3 things really fast. Give me 3 more. And I'm probably not going to free up my time. I'm probably just going to allow you to give me more. And then my output's going to be average and it's going to be good.
Right.
So, and we're kind of seeing it. We're seeing such a deluge of content that brands are putting out. You're hearing things like AI slop, and you're hearing other stuff. And there will be hopefully a backlash at some point where people are like, okay, can the brand stop putting so much stuff in front of my face? Can it edit? Like Abe Lincoln said, had I had more time, I would have written a shorter letter. And that's the challenge, is the editing piece is the hardest piece.
Right.
And brands need to start self-editing. I think consumers are going to go to the brands that feel like, oh, you actually said no to probably a bunch of stuff so that you could connect with me on a personal level. And the message was very pointed versus like glossy and tasty and just a ton of stuff. So
this concept of good enough is not good enough is also really powerful. Again, it just kind of comes back to this idea of being in the middle, which is what you said, the middle is dead, I think.
Yeah,
and so, I love that as a challenge for us, which is how do we, I believe one of the key things that we have to press ourselves on always is curiosity. Like, how are we you were saying, like, how do you ask that next question? Like what, and don't just sort of say, okay, we got the answer, let's move on to the next thing. And it's so fascinating because I've been doing this for so long, but as I hear you talk, I actually feel like I have been maybe defaulting a little bit to good enough as opposed to sort of pushing the envelope more to sort of say, how do I remember how to be unreasonable? Which is, it's just fascinating to hear you talk about this. Which leads into the thing that I really want to get your point of view on is resiliency and how do we deal with difficult times? I mean, you've kind of set this situation up that your business itself is needing to pivot.
Yeah.
And it might not work.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
like,
right.
which is kind of a wow, like,
Yeah.
because,
Scary.
because it's scary,
Yeah.
but you also seem like a glass is half full kind of guy that you're going to go into it like, like when I call you in a year and you're going to say, yeah, we won.
Yeah.
But how do you, as a leader and as a father and husband and just as a man, deal with difficult times? I mean, what kind of gets you through them? How do you process that, and how do you work to come out on the other side?
Yeah. My wife has been a huge help for that since I've known her for so long, but I still need to get better at how do I process difficult times. Something that's helped me though is knowing that not everything has to feel extraordinary or life-changing. And when you pursue content on social media or you consume any media, it just feels like everything always has to feel going up and to the right. It feels like everything in your life has to be progressing and getting better, and everything you do has to have a purpose. And it has to go towards something. It has to be great, and it has to be the best of the best. And there's so much tension and pressure. I know on my kids, on their generation, on employees, on owners, on guys my age, business owners, to either at a minimum put out the perception that we're up and to the right, or even feel like everything I do today is going to be the best.
Right.
You consume content like get up at 4 a.m., do a cold plunge, and then do your meditation, then go work out, then do the sauna, then have breakfast with your kids, then go for a walk, and then consume a podcast, and then go do your job.
And it's 9 o'clock.
Yeah, and it's 9 a.m. And it's like, and then you're going to progress as a human. And one thing that's helped me is understanding that consistency is the key. So you have to be consistent, and you're not always going to feel like today I did something incredible. But as long as you feel like today I did something beneficial, productive, profitable, it wasn't a huge win, but it was profitable. I spent time here. I did things that were good and moved forward. And it may feel mundane. It may not feel extraordinary, but that's okay. Life is not made up of constant extraordinary moments. Life is made up of extraordinary, ordinary, 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 extraordinary, ordinary, ordinary. It's a mix.
Right.
And when I feel the most stressed out is when I feel like I need to have another extraordinary moment, another one, another one, another one. I need to have a win. I need to close a piece of business. I need to have a mic drop moment with a client where I say something really creative and I get my dopamine hit of like, yes, I'm still relevant. I'm still valid. I'm still creative.
Right.
There are times where it's like, no, that was actually a great meeting. Did we hit an extraordinary? No, it was ordinary, but it was exactly what we needed.
Right.
So for me, what's helped me the most is knowing it's the consistency that keeps you and gets you where you want to go. It's not this sort of thing.
Yes.
And when you're hitting a hard moment, it's all the cliches, but they're important. This too shall pass. There's that quote from who's the mime actor way back in the 1900s? Charlie Chaplin.
Yes.
And he said, nothing is permanent, not even your problems. So once you realize, okay, this is a difficult time, but in order to get me out of this difficult time, I probably do not need a moonshot or an extraordinary thing to immediately pull me out. I probably need to just identify, okay, this is a difficult time. If we create consistent behavior and a strategy to show up consistent, what does this look like 3 months from now? And if we can say in 3 months, we believe we'll be here, and that's encouraging to us, that's probably the best way to get out of a difficult situation. The worst way to get out of a difficult situation is wanting it to be fixed immediately. I don't like the way I'm feeling. I don't like the situation we're in. What is the one lever we can pull that immediately gets us out? Life isn't that way. The one lever you can pull is probably sitting down and saying, okay, we did some work with Tony Robbins, so this is not my thing, but I love where he says you don't experience life, you experience the life you focus on. So in that moment, what are you focused on? And what is the thing that you could do today? It may be ordinary, and that's okay. But what do you do today that if you do that one thing consistently for the next 10 days, it's at least heading in the right direction? So consistency, you don't have to have the answers. This too shall pass. I'm kind of trying to summarize what's helped me get through difficult times.
Yes, exactly.
And just knowing that the ordinary is as important as the extraordinary. You just stack the days, you just stack it. And then after a while, you're like, oh, it's interesting. You know, it's all those analogies people say of, if you want to get stronger and someone says, you know what, you should probably do 25 push-ups a day. You're not going to do 25 push-ups the first day, be like, ooh, I'm stronger.
Right.
You're going to have to do it for 2 to 3 weeks. And then suddenly you're like, that feels good. And the last thing is like, good things and bad things typically don't happen in a blast or a moment in time. It's not like, oh, suddenly something happened. I got a phone call, my business took off, or I got a phone call, my business crashed. It's usually the culmination of consistency over a long period of time. So getting through difficult times is, for me, that consistency. And then also having people around you that support and celebrate the mundane. You know, they're like, hey, today's a great day.
Right.
You know, what did you celebrate today? It doesn't have to be, I celebrated a huge win. It's like, I celebrated good latte with Jane.
Yeah. Right.
So,
you know, this is so profound to me, this idea. As you were talking, I was thinking that you really can't have extraordinary if you don't have ordinary.
yes. That's
Like because you can't live at this level
Yeah.
like this, and you only know it's better if you're
Yes.
in the mundane or you're
Yeah.
in the time that is not great. That again,
Yeah.
that this extraordinary experience is only in comparison to a non-extraordinary
Yes.
experience, which
Yeah.
is probably what most of our lives are, and to like revel in that and enjoy it. I do think that that's one of the things that I'm so glad I didn't grow up in a world of social media,
Yeah.
because I only knew like the kids next door and what they looked like and what they were doing. I
Right.
didn't know that people were super rich or cute or
Yeah.
smart or athletic or whatever. We were just all kind of average kids in Peoria, Illinois,
Right.
and so every day was like an ordinary day.
Yes. Yeah.
But it didn't seem like that was a negative, because that was
Yeah.
just life, and now I think about your kids and what they're faced with, which is seeing the extraordinary from
Yeah.
everybody all the time. And how do you manage that and not set your standard
Right.
to be the extraordinary, to actually say like ordinary is cool?
Yeah. Exactly. And then how do you attach a positive meaning to the ordinary?
Right.
Because the other thing, like when you hit struggles in life, it's the meaning that you attach to something that will be how you extract value out of that event. So an event happens to you. Whatever meaning you give to that event is what you're going to extract out of it. So if I attach a negative meaning to losing money in the stock market,
Right.
then what value am I going to that? Negative. I'm going to beat myself up. I'm going to feel like a failure. But if I attach positive meanings to that, what lessons did I learn?
Right.
What can I do different next time? Is it making me think completely different? Because now I have to readjust because I can't stay status quo. So if I can attach a positive meaning to the ordinary events, and again, it doesn't always have to be super positive.
Right.
But at least like today was a good day because I got to spend time doing this. I did that. And what can I extract from it? What's the meaning? And it's a fine line because there's all this talk about gratitude, which I completely agree with. I heard this term from this woman. I wish I could remember her name to give her credit. Elena, she's on LinkedIn, but I'll look her up later.
Yeah.
But she said this great term, and I read it, and she said guiltitude. She said everybody says to have gratitude, but nobody talks about guiltitude, which is you guilt yourself into like, I should be grateful. It's like, and you guilt yourself into like, find the gratitude.
Right.
What's the 5 things I should be grateful for? And that kind of stuck with me. I was like, man, even there, we're so hard on ourselves of
Yes.
like, before you go to bed, what are 5 things you're grateful for? And even then, it's like, why even have this list of like at least 5? And I know there's behavioral psychology behind forcing yourself to find the things that you're grateful for. But it could even just be like, okay, objectively, outside of my emotions, what happened today? We lost a piece of business. I hired a new employee. We won a piece of business. Okay, objectively, what's the meaning that I can attach to this? Oh, the meaning of losing this business is X, the meaning. And then the meaning should be what is positive that I can extract from that. And then when I extract all that, I probably will have a general sense of gratitude, not a very specific, I'm grateful. But it's probably like, objectively, what meaning can I attach to that? Okay, great, good, I feel pretty good. And I probably have just a general sense of gratitude and calm and peace, without having to, well, I'm grateful for my wife, my kids, because I don't know about you, but when I've tried to do the grateful lists, I end up just going back to the same list because I'm tired.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Like, okay, I'm tired of going to bed. What am I grateful for? Well, I'm healthy. My kids are healthy. My wife's healthy. You know, we're still in business.
Right.
So, but it's not easy. And like you said, I do not envy my kids' generation. I was talking to my daughter about that the other day. I do not envy them at all. Real time, everything, and everything has to be amazing. And everything has to be better. And you know, that saying, comparison is the thief of joy.
Yes.
When you get on social media, I think inherently, going back to the word judgmental creatures, what's the first thing you're doing? You're judging the people that you're looking at, and then you're comparing that against yourself, and you're judging.
Yes.
It's a constant comparison. But it's hard, because I know I've done social media purges and I felt a lot better when I don't get on social media. But then you have FOMO. You know, it's like,
right.
What am I missing out? What event is happening in Boulder that I'm not going to because I'm not seeing it on Instagram or Facebook? But
right.
But it's tough.
Well, I think this comparison thing is such a big deal. And a number of years ago, I read this book from Cheryl Strayed, who wrote Wild, and then but it's called Tiny Beautiful Things. And the crazy thing about it was this one, it was a series of short stories, and one of it was called Run Your Own Race. And I love that so much, which is like you're saying, is like the hardest thing to do, which is, instead of me comparing myself to you and all your success and what you're doing, is to say, okay, what is it actually important to me? What is it that is like, so it isn't that I'm not going to look like that person or have money like this person or have this kind of fame. But in my world, like, what is that extraordinary?
Yeah.
And then again, going back to kind of reveling in the ordinary. But I just really have always loved that idea that if we could compare ourselves to ourselves, like, what was our last best time that we had, not the best time, like in terms of like a race. Well, you know, what was my best time before? And how do I do better against that time versus, God, John is so much faster and stronger than me. I need to do better than him. It's like, it's hard, but it's not really relevant.
Yeah, that's right. Did you see that Matthew McConaughey speech when he won the Oscar?
I don't know if I did.
It's so good. It's one of the best acceptance speeches I'd say I've ever seen. And he talks about, who does he chase? And he talks about, he chases himself in the future. And the whole premise is he's always just competing against himself.
Right.
And it's so important because one thing I do, which is not healthy, is I tend to seek a lot of opinions. And my wife has been amazing for me because she's that bellwether of like, hey, I think you don't need to get more opinions on this. Like, at some point, just sit down with it and come up with the answer. The reason why it's so important is because if you're looking at a stock, and let's say that you open up and Apple stock is down 5% right now, and you look at it at that moment in time, that stock will either go down or it will go up. You have to ascertain, has that stock reached the bottom and is it about to go up, or has it not reached the bottom and is still going to go down?
Mm-hmm.
So when you go seek others' opinions and you say, this is what I'm feeling right now, you're asking them to measure the value of your stock. They immediately are going to pass judgment without a lot of information. They're immediately going to say, oh, Jane, oh man, I think you really run the risk of your stock going down even more.
Right.
You know, but they don't know that. They don't know that your stock has reached bottom and you're about to pop up.
Yes.
Other people will be like, Jane, I think you got this. I think you're going to rebound. I think you're going to do just fine. And then you go and you talk to all your friends, and 7 people say my stock's going to go down. 5 people say it's going to go up. Oh, I just don't know.
Right.
they don't have all the information. They don't know your level. And I know we want to talk about this. We don't know your level of resilience, your level of grit, your level of resources, your level of aptitude. They don't know anything. What they know is my version of Jane is X. I think your stock's going to go down, or I think it's going to go up. The people that think it's going to go up, they also could be wrong if you're making the wrong decision. So I think that's where it's, as a human, it's get enough information, but then how do you find the meaning in the moment and say, I think the decisions that I have in front of me that I can make will help me out of this.
Right.
Because it's another Tony Robbins thing that I love. Not to just sound like a fanboy, because I'm not, but he has some good info.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but he says like, your condition doesn't determine your destiny. The decisions that you make do. So the condition that you're in right now, everyone else is judging, and they're like, given your condition, given where you're at, given what you have in front of you, I think you're going to do this. I think you're going to do that.
Right.
That's independent of the decisions that Jane can make. So they're evaluating your condition, making an assumption. Here's where you're going. You have total control of the meaning that you can put on something, the decisions that you can make, and the path that you can form, the leverage that you can get from resources, the energy that you can put into stuff. So I think that's a super important thing to help people out. And we talked about that being articulated as resilience or grit. And I think a big part of AI and everything else is when you're always seeking other answers, and you do not have to come up with an answer that you have to fully own and put your name behind.
Mm-hmm.
What that does not do is it does not form some form of constitution or confidence. So if you don't have a constitution or confidence, do you have grit? Probably not.
Right.
Because grit comes from you knowing that you have it within you and you have the ability to do hard things. Grit does not come from looking at memes on Instagram that make me feel better for 5 seconds, or calling up a friend and they're like, you got this. And I feel better for 2 minutes until I open up that email and I get another email. I'm like, oh, there it goes again.
Right.
Grit is not this. Grit is like baked in through your confidence, and that's baked in through knowing that you can pop on your own. And that's a big thing that we're starting to see with clients and with employees and friends is, how do you have that level of grit where you can make the right decisions to get out of situations and do hard things?
Well, but what's interesting, and I agree with you 100% on grit, is when you talk about making the decision, where are you at, and is it going to go up or go down? Whichever way it goes, it doesn't matter.
Yes.
And that's like the thing that I think is the other thing is, how do we detach ourselves from the fact that you've made a bad decision? Because you didn't make a bad decision, you made a decision based on the information that you had.
That's right.
And so maybe it's like this, but you made the best decision that you could. So, and maybe it won't go up like this for a while, but that's okay too. But it is, how do you have that grit to be able to, because I've been in situations, I would say the times that I have worked the least, I've had some of the best success.
Yeah.
And the times I've worked the hardest, I have had the most failure. It's crazy, because you think it'd be the other way. Like, I'm going to work really hard because I've got all this grit and it's going to be great results. But there's so many things that are outside of your control that, even though, you said you were pulling, stuff out of your pack, I think about the same thing. I have this toolkit, and I feel like I pull all the tools out and I'm like out of tools. Like, what do I do here? But I think this idea that again, things are going to be ordinary, and sometimes things are going to be less than ordinary, right? And how do you get on the other side of that and sort of say, and you said this earlier, I think it's so powerful, what did I learn from that? Not like, oh my God, why did it go wrong? But more, it went wrong. So how does that inform what I do in the future? And again, I think going back to the whole discussion about AI taking us to the middle, I think the thing about us as humans is we can raise so much above that because we're asking that next question. We're not trying to get a generic answer. We're not trying to just end in this middle place. We're trying to kind of raise our existence all the time. But the only way you could do it, you only know you're raising if you've been down in the dumps.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah, you're exactly right. And you said something there I like a lot, which is sometimes not doing something, or, being calm is really important. But you also said the decision itself is really important. And I love that, because at some point you have to move, and movement does not always mean high energy or doing lots of stuff. Where movement means I made a decision and the outcome is this energy.
Yes.
Because everything is energy. So AI, the prominent energy around AI right now is speed and velocity.
Right.
Faster, more money, more processing power, more answers. You can build a thing in 6 minutes, whereas it used to took 6 days. So the energy around AI is like at an 11. It's like peak, just like, always going. And that's not life.
Right.
Sometimes the decision you need to make is the energy you need right now as a business, as a family, as a group of coworkers, is a sense of calm. And we need that energy. And we need the energy of simplicity. And we're not going to say yes to 5 things. We're going to say no to 4 of them. And we're going to say yes to that. And with AI and everything else being all about velocity and quantity, the risk is people feeling like that decision would be a bad decision. We're not doing enough. No, we're doing plenty. We're doing exactly what we need to be doing.
Right.
Which is staying calm, not chasing distractions, staying fully focused on the one thing that we need to double down on, and it's going to be okay. And we're all going to go to lunch. We're all going to enjoy each other's time for an hour. We're not going to be like, I got to get back to work. Because everything is about energy, and the decisions you make have to do with that energy and your focus. So I love what you said. Decision-making, super important. The energy that we bring, the lessons that you learn. And I would be lying big time if I was like, I learned that lesson early. I didn't learn that lesson early about everything's a lesson. Because when you're winning, when you take a couple of losses, for me, when I took a couple of my first losses, I wasn't super positive about, well, what can I learn from this? And I was really frustrated.
You're like, it sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks. Not like, oh, I'm going to be so much smarter. You're
Yeah,
like, no,
totally.
Nobody has that reaction,
totally.
right?
Yeah. And then not only,
why me?
Yeah, why me? And then, I don't know, I felt like, it's stupid that people are like, well, you should learn lessons. Like, that's just what people that have lost say, because they're trying to find, how do I get back to winning? And then when I finally learned, it was when I took consecutive losses. Like, ooh, that's a loss. Ooh, that's a big loss.
Yeah.
And then when you thought, ooh, I might lose all of it. I might go out of business unless we pivot.
Yeah.
Then you're like, okay, what can I have learned from that? And then there's a little bit of regret of like, why didn't I learn from the first loss?
Yes, exactly.
Versus just being like, well, we'll figure it out.
Right. Well, you just kind of keep like hoping it's going to get better, hit your head against the wall or whatever. And then all of a sudden, yeah, you're right. I've definitely been in that situation. And you're just like, gosh, I should be smarter than that. But you're making the best decision you can with the information that you've got.
That's exactly right. Well, have you heard all those analogies about, anybody that's, war is so terrible, so I hate using war analogies, but big decisions that countries have made, or like I think Norman Schwarzkopf said, you would make a decision based off of 75 to 80% of information. Yeah. And you could not wait until you had 100% certainty, because then it'd be too late. And in life, if you wait till you're 100% certain, no human being is ever 100% certain. Mm-hmm. There's always some level of doubt, because we always wonder if there's something different or better we can be doing. So you have to also kind of define at what point will we be certain enough to make a decision to move forward. And like in my case, at what point do I stop asking for other people's input and opinions versus saying, no, I think this is where we need to go. Right.
Well, this has been the most amazing discussion. So I could talk to you forever, but I do want to ask one final question. Yeah. What are you most hopeful about?
Man, that's such a good question, because we're in trying times right now, geopolitically.
Yes.
I really love what I'm most hopeful about with society and with human beings in general is that it seems like we're starting to see a lot of pushback from people feeling like they are not going to be okay with outsourcing their intelligence or outsourcing their emotions, outsourcing their humanity to robots. And that's what I'm really hopeful about, is people are starting to really at scale. So, okay, this whole AI thing has promise, technology in general has promise, but it does seem like there's this boomerang back to a desire to have human connection,
Yes.
to have what we had pre-COVID, coffee meetings, networking, meetups where 30 people will be in a coffee shop, just getting to know each other.
Right.
So that's what I'm most hopeful about, is that it does seem like there's a huge desire to get back to actual human connection and to not outsource our humanity to large language models, machines, but instead be like, okay, we're not anti that, but we're also not going to outsource ourselves to that. How do we stay connected? That's what I'm really, really hopeful about. And having kids, one a junior college, one a freshman college, hearing the conversations that they're having with their peers is really encouraging.
Oh, great.
It's really, because they're really, they're so desirous of authenticity. All the buzzwords that in business we used to always say, like, how do we be authentic? How do we stay connected? All these buzzwords are actually meaningful to them now. And the last thing I'll say on that hope is, have you seen the movie Hail Mary yet?
No.
Okay, I won't ruin it for you, but it was really great. I went with my kids, late showing, like 10 p.m. It's a 3-hour movie. The theater was packed with high school kids, college kids. And that was really encouraging, because it's a 3-hour movie. It's a thoughtful script. It's just such a good movie that is not all on the effects and all on the extraordinary pops of the cultural scenes that everybody talks about. It's just a steady, thoughtful movie that makes you think, and everybody loves it. And that's encouraging.
Wow.
Because it's not a quick, you go there and you're watching it, and it's off a book, of course, but it's a pretty steady movie that you have to give it time. And I think that's what's hopeful, is people are so desirous of that. So
I love that. I love that.
what are you hopeful for?
I'm in the same place with you. I really believe there's a renaissance of human connection.
Yeah.
That it just that even with everything that's happening that would reinforce less human connection,
Yeah.
I do believe that is the next generation of what's going to be happening. And I would say, I will even take it to a very tactical thing, which is hugging.
Yes.
I really believe that there's the connection and there's also human touch. And I just feel so strongly about this, because I just feel that there's so much isolation and so much, as you said, about geopolitical things that are going on, that we need each other now more than ever.
Yeah.
And I think if we can take this AI thing and keep it in the middle, and then us be on the edges and be connected, it's so powerful and so exciting and so hopeful.
That's right. Yeah.
Anyway, wow.
I love that.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me on.
Wow. Where do I even begin? There is so much in this episode, I had to listen to it twice to even begin my reflection. I am obsessed right now with the impact of technology in our lives, so I want to focus there. I get concerned that we look to AI for the answers, and it only reinforces what I think is the lingering isolation from COVID. As John said, we are turning to AI in this need for speed and velocity of answers. And his observations that the answers are in the middle as AI pulls everything together in an average. That we as humans have the unique opportunity to be unreasonable and question things and operate on the edges. That we don't have to settle that good enough is good enough. That our curiosity in asking the next question is part of our human experience. And we have this interaction and community, not isolation. Let me simplify my thoughts to a couple of key questions for us. First, do we allow ourselves to be unreasonable and push the edges on answers we get from AI or others? Second, are we okay with not creating more, but creating less with more potency? And finally, and this is the big one, do we have the grit to own our own decisions, whether they turn out to be good or bad. I can tell you that Earl was ready for a long walk after John and my marathon session, but he's ready now to give you his opinion about hugs, and that is the ultimate thing we can share with each other. Take it away, Earl.
Hey, Earl here, Chief Hugs Officer at Jane's Place. After joining almost every episode, I discovered my passion, and that passion is giving hugs. H-U-G-S, hugs. I also learned something pretty important along the way too. When things feel hard or uncertain, and sometimes even when life is exciting, words aren't always enough. But showing up for someone is. And by adding a hug, you say, I care. So I've started a hugs movement to kick off 2026. I just know the world can be a better place if we are generous with our hugs. But since I can't be everywhere, I've created Earl's Happy Hug Box. It's a special gift box curated by me, and inside there's a comfy, life-size plush that looks just like me. I call him Earl Jr. Plus a few other fun things are included too. Now, if someone came to mind while you were listening or watching today, this might be for them. Or might even be what you could use right now. You can learn more at janesplace.com/Earl. But for now, I'll leave you with one of my Earls of Wisdom. Show up, hug often.
Special thanks to my amazing producer, Aditi Joshi, for her partnership in creating Jane's Place and all her hard work behind the scenes to make Jane's Place so special. I am also grateful that my Chief Hugs Officer, Sir Earl Grey, has a real voice thanks to my good friend, Jake Dawson. And Jane's Place feels like home with the music from an amazing musician, Tim Cook. Tim gave us permission to use the Subdued song, Them Figs, as our upbeat theme music. Tune into the next episode of Jane's Place, where dreams learn to fly.